Honey roast carrots and parsnips. Yes, it's that time of year again, and I'm going to demonstrate 2 ways to make them. I'm going to show you 2 completely different cooking methods and 2 completely different flavourings for the glaze. So without further ado, here's everything you need. To begin, we need to prep our carrots and parsnips. I've got a lovely selection here. I've got these 3 different colours of carrots, and I've got some parsnips, but you can use any you want. The little piccolo parsnips are perfect, but just get whichever ones you like or whichever ones are cheapest and use them. So I'll start by peeling both the carrots and parsnips. So a little tip here, just to make things a little bit less messy, is to lay a few sheets of kitchen paper onto your chopping board, and then you can peel straight onto them, and it just makes the cleanup a little bit easier. And then I'll top and tail them. So next we need to cut them up, and we just want to have a little look at them. If they're a nice big carrot like this one, nice and chunky, I'm going to cut this one into quarters. So lengthways in half, then each half in half lengthways again. But if it's a smaller carrot or parsnip like this, I'll just go ahead and cut that one in half, or potentially leave it whole, depending on how small it is. So you'll notice I've got my carrots separated off into 2 separate piles. Just for reference, there's roughly around 700 grams for each one. These are going to be for 2 different recipes that are the 2 different methods, which I'll speak a little bit about now. So these ones over here, I've deliberately separated the darker ones, these purple carrots, into that pile, and I've left lighter ones over here. That's because this pile are going to be roasted from the beginning. So that's going to go in the oven, coated in a little bit of oil and sea salt, and roasted until they are cooked through before we glaze them. But for this pile, I'm going to poach them really gently with a few Christmas spices. And I don't want the liquor or the liquid turning purple from the purple carrots. That's why I've left them in the roasting pile. So next, we'll preheat the oven to 180 degrees Celsius fan and prepare these roasting carrots for the first recipe. Place your carrots and parsnips into a roasting pan or on a roasting tray, and then lightly drizzle with around 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Season generously with sea salt and black pepper, and then we'll place them into the preheated oven to roast for around 30 minutes. So now we've got the first stage of the first recipe underway, we'll move on to the first stage of the second recipe. And for that you need a pan, quite a large pan, as long as it's wide enough to fit a carrot in, a lengthways carrot in, then you'll be good to go. It can be a saucepan or a saute pan like this. And all we're going to do is place the carrot into the pan in as thin layer as possible. And then we're going to pour over 250 millilitres of fresh orange juice, and then top it up with a little bit of water until it just covers the carrots and parsnips. Then we'll add in 2 star anise, 10 to 12 cloves, 2 bay leaves, and around 4 slices of fresh ginger. Place it over a medium heat and bring it to a simmer. Once it's simmering, reduce the heat to low to an extremely gentle simmer. While our carrots are coming up to a simmer, we're going to make a cartouche to go over the top, which is basically like a paper lid, which also lets some of the steam escape but traps enough in to allow for sort of poaching and braising and keep control of the cooking. The reason I want some of the steam to escape is because this liquid is going to reduce down later on to become our glaze. So we can cook our carrots and start the reducing process, but not too quickly, if that makes sense. So to make a cartouche, take a sheet of parchment paper or greaseproof paper, make sure it's big enough to go over your pan. Then fold it in half again, and then with this point just keep folding it over until you have a triangle shape like that. Then you can go over to your pan, place the triangle in the centre and tear it off where it meets the edge of the pan. And then on the point, you just want to cut the end of that off, and that creates a nice little hole in the centre for steam to escape. So if we fold it out, we should have a circle roughly the size of the pan with a hole in the middle. Once that's simmering, we'll place that over the top and press it to the surface, and that'll keep enough heat in just to cook those carrots all the way through while letting some of the steam escape. Leave the carrots and parsnips to gently simmer for around 20 minutes or until they're completely cooked through and have absorbed all of that beautiful flavour. So we've got the first stage of cooking for both recipes underway, and next we're going to make the glaze for the roasted carrots and parsnips, and that's going to be a honey mustard glaze with thyme and garlic. So into 100 grams of honey, place 30 grams of whole grain mustard, 30 grams of Dijon mustard, 10 millilitres of white wine vinegar, 1 clove of garlic, crushed or grated, and 1 teaspoon of dried thyme. Simply mix all ingredients together until well combined, and then we'll set it to one side until it's ready to use. So the carrots and parsnips for the first recipe have been roasting for half an hour now, and they're nicely cooked, nicely roasted, but there's not too much colour on them, and that's absolutely fine. We can now move on to the next step. So what we're going to do is pour over about half of our honey mustard glaze and then toss them in it until they're completely coated. And then we're going to place them back into the oven and roast them until that glaze looks sticky and delicious. And after around 20 minutes, your other carrots and parsnips should be cooked through, and you can remove that cartouche from the top. Then very carefully and gently remove the carrots and parsnips from the cooking liquor. I'm placing mine onto a cooling rack just to allow any of the excess liquid to drip off and for the steam to evaporate nicely, because the drier they are, the easier the glaze will stick to them later on. But you don't have to do this, you could just lay them out on a chopping board, on a tray or on a plate. We'll then crank the heat up to high and reduce that liquid down to a syrup. Once it reduces down to almost nothing, you can remove it from the heat. And now we need to remove the spices from there, so we're left with purely just the orange syrup. And next we're going to pour that syrup into 100 grams of honey and mix until it's well combined. Then we can transfer our carrots and parsnips into a roasting tray and pour over half of that spiced orange honey. Toss until completely coated and then place into a preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius for around 30 minutes until the glaze has gone nice and sticky and the carrots are beautifully roasted. So once your carrots and parsnips are ready, you can serve them up. For the mustard ones, I'm just going to pile them nice and high on a plate and finish them with a little bit of fresh thyme. That is completely optional. If you don't have it, don't worry. And then for the spiced orange and honey carrots, I'm going to sprinkle over some freshly chopped parsley. Again, this is optional, but it adds a nice brightness, some vibrance, some colour. And I'm just going to mix them through until they're nicely coated and then also pile them up on a plate. And then of course you can finish each one with an extra drizzle of the reserved glaze. So there we go, 2 ways you can make your honey roast carrots and parsnips this year. Let me know in the comments which one you are going to try or how you make yours. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.